Hey there guys, Spexxy here, welcoming you back to yet another piping hot slice of video game history. So in the last episode of Clone Wars you may recall that I talked about Gauntlet, Atari's dungeon crawling multiplayer arcade coin stealing blockbuster. Well, today is almost a natural progression on that theme as we delve deep into yet more dungeons in search for the history of The Legend of Zelda. So firstly we need to get a grasp on what The Legend of Zelda is, who created it, when it was made, what inspired it, and exactly what makes it such a great game that so many have tried and some have even succeeded in emulating the format. Well, the first answer should come as no surprise really, as the creator of Zelda, like so many of Nintendo's other classics, was none other than Shigeru Miyamoto, probably most famous for creating a certain Italian plumber, but that's something for another video. The Legend of Zelda was made in the mid-80s and released for the NES by Nintendo in Japan on the 21st of February 1986, only 1 year after Gauntlet released to the arcades. And although there's no mention of Gauntlet ever being an inspiration in any way to the franchise, it's hard not to notice a few similarities. Firstly, it is of course a dungeon crawler, and obviously both share that almost top-down viewpoint. And then there's this guy. Come on, tell me you don't see it. Though honestly speaking, both Gauntlet and Zelda were in production at the very same time, so it's actually highly unlikely that either of them took any true inspiration from the other. For a start, Zelda is a game strictly set out for one player only, casting you in the role of the legendary hero, Link. Yep, that's right guys, Link is the hero here. Zelda is the princess he must strive to save, though it's unbelievably surprising how many of you still don't grasp that simple concept. So let's get this straight once and for all. Hero? Princess? You got that! This is much more of an exploration game than Gauntlet ever was, an epic quest rather than an endless romp, with an emphasis focused on items, weapons, puzzles and interaction with NPCs, and a clear goal at the heart of it all, to rescue the princess Zelda! And save all of Hyrule from the tyranny of the evil Prince of Darkness, Pig Boy himself, Ganon. Yeah, sorry mate. Miyamoto is quoted as saying that the game's concept was based on his own experience as a child, growing up in the Shinobi region of Japan, where he would explore the local hills, forests and caves in search of adventure, as I'm sure many kids do. His mind fueled by imagination and the dreams of legendary treasure. Miyamoto remembers one particular cave which upon summoning up enough courage, he finally explored with the aid of a lantern. This, so he says, gave him the inspiration for The Legend of Zelda. Link himself was based on J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan? Yeah, I can see that. And Princess Zelda was named after the famous author and artist Zelda Fitzgerald, who just like his envisioned princess, Miyamoto saw as a strong and beautiful woman, who just so happened to have a bloody amazing name. So he nicked it! So with a mix of exploration, puzzles, item collection and interaction, and an unfolding story and quest objective, there have been many games over the years which fit the same archetype, right? Well, that's certainly true, but it may come as a surprise that not all of them were released after The Legend of Zelda. Technically speaking, Zelda is an action RPG, and that genre started at least a whole 2 years earlier, with many citing the first game of the genre to be Dragon Slayer by Nihon Falcom, released in 1984 for the NEC PC 8801 and 9801, and at first glance it's pretty hard not to draw some comparisons here to Dandy. You remember that game from the last episode, the one that inspired Gauntlet? Could it be that Dandy, released a whole year earlier in 83, also inspired Dragon Slayer and in turn maybe even Zelda? Who could possibly say, but it's certainly food for thought. Also in 1984, though slightly later by a month or two, was Hydlide by T&E Soft, which saw the character from a similar viewpoint, exploring castles and dungeons along with a very Zelda-esque overworld complete with trees and rocks, and a supposedly epic quest. But it all came across to me as just a little bit lackluster. But then, what do I know? And whilst we're at it, I'd like to throw in a bit of a curveball here from a purely British point of view. When looking at the dungeon walls and the squat side-on character designs, I can clearly see a striking resemblance to A Tic Tac by Ultimate Play the Game. Although these games themselves are a world apart in playstyle, the characters and scenery do look somewhat similar. A coincidence? Who knows? But I think it's fair to say that whether Miyamoto believes it or not, it's highly likely that some of the inspiration was drawn, maybe even subconsciously, from at least a couple of these games during the development process for The Legend of Zelda. But aside from all of this, it would inevitably be The Legend of Zelda that grabbed the world's attention, finding a home in our hearts and truly defining the action-adventure RPG, becoming a standard by which all others were to be measured. Of course, it was obviously destined to inspire many games over the years. However, a few of those have taken more than just a little inspiration and instead come off as blatant copies or rip-offs. Though with such a high standard to aim for, they're not all that bad to be fair. So let's start the ball rolling with our first clone game. It's 1987 and the world gets exposed to a truly bizarre game, The Magic of Scheherazade, by Culture Brain, a game for the NES which mixes many of the main gameplay elements of Zelda with a Dragon Warrior style combat system. And you know what? It bloody works! Yeah, alright, it's wacky, that's for sure, but it's also wonderful. Trust me on this. Gavelius, Valley of Doom by Sega was released in 1988 for the Master System. Again, it uses much of the same Zelda style mechanics with the odd twist here and there, and again not too shabby an effort when all's said and done. Stomping in 1989 and 1990 come two little titles from Hudson Soft and Atlas, both for the TurboGrafx 16 system, Dungeon Explorer and Newtopia, and a couple of stonking little games they are too. 1990 gave us the uninspiring Lagoon by Kemco for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Also in 1990 came Crystallis, or Godslayer as it was better known in Japan, by SNK, a game for the NES, and again not too bad an attempt to be fair to it. And all of these came before Nintendo got around to releasing the official third installment of the Zelda franchise.
This time it calls you to the ultimate battle of good against evil. To a quest few are prepared for, and fewer still survive. But perhaps now the power is within your grasp. It's the game that's already a legend. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, only on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with superpower.
A Link to the Past was released in 1991 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Or rather, SNES. Don't at me. This game is, hands down, my favourite Zelda game bar none. I love the look, the gameplay and the story, and the use of the dual maps for both the past and the present just make this game a true classic that will never die in my eyes. So come on copycats, how do you follow that? Well, not like that you don't, Sega. Golden Axe Warrior, Sega's 1991 effort for the Master System, is so obviously a rip-off it doesn't even try to hide the fact. There's nothing new or special about it in any way, and it doesn't come close to matching up to A Link in the Past in gameplay. Let's face it, it's bloody 1991 Sega, the era of the 16-bit. It's a little bit late to be bringing an 8-bit only title to the table, don't you think? It also has little to nothing to do with the Golden Axe franchise, other than throwing in a couple of names here and there such as Axe Battler and Death Adder, and all of this in a futile desperation to get some attention off the back of it. Sega, you should be ashamed of yourselves. But I know you can do better. Maybe later, eh? So let's see what other games we had on offer at the time. They might be a bit better. Well, I hate to see them if they were much worse. We had Landstalker by Climax Entertainment in 1992 for the Mega Drive, Soul Blazer by Quintet again in 92 for the SNES, Secret of Mana by Square Enix in 1993 for the SNES, Illusion of Gaia by Quintet also in 93 and again on the SNES, Terranigma in 1995 by Quintet, and would you believe it, again for the SNES, and Secret of Evermore by Square in 1995, another SNES classic. And then, out of nowhere, Sega finally got their act together, pulling up their big boy pants to present us with Crusader of Senti, or Soleo, as it was better known here in the PAL regions, released for the Mega Drive / Genesis in 1994, and this time it was a pretty solid game in its own right. A great story, great gameplay, beautiful sprites, what's not to like here? Good on you Sega, I knew you could do it, but can you possibly do any better still? Well, the answer to that is a clear and resounding sodding right we can, as they whop out Beyond Oasis, or Story of Thor, in 1994, a game for the Mega Drive, and what a bloody great game this was. Nay, is! Do yourself a favour guys, go and sniff this one out, you won't regret it. And it seems like at this time Sega really got a taste for this style of game, with Sylvan Tale released for the Game Gear in 95, Magic Knight Ray Earth and Shining Wisdom both in the same year for the Saturn, Legend of Oasis Story of Thor 2 in 96, again for the Saturn, and finally Link will Live a Story yet again in 96 and yet again for the Saturn. Bloody hell Sega, I can't catch my breath here, slow down! Well, then we get the slightly odd and Japan-only Wild West-themed Zelda clone, Ganpuro Gunman's Proof by ASCII for the SNES. I've never actually played this one to confirm the gameplay style, but visually it's clear to see it's inspired by The Legend of Zelda, in particular A Link to the Past, which it almost looks like it completely ripped the backgrounds from, to be fair. I do, however, happen to know that this game has received a full English. No, not the breakfast! Translation, and it's actually available to buy on reproduced cartridges to play on original hardware. Though I'll likely see if I can find a ROM and give this one a go for myself. In fact, if you're watching more than stills of this game right now, that's exactly what I did do. And from the wacky Wild West to the odd tale of a group of kids on the search for a marvellous treasure, quite literally. Marvelous, Another Treasure Island was released in 1996 only in Japan by Nintendo, designed by Eiji Iwanuma, who later went on to work on the official Zelda franchise, starting with the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Eiji has stayed with the franchise right up until present day, becoming the producer on both the Breath of the Wild and the upcoming Breath of the Wild 2. In fact, with such a pedigree in gaming experience, Nintendo has made Eiji Deputy General Manager of Entertainment Planning and Development. This game is a mix of epic quest, strangeness and some slightly awkward moments along the way. It's not so hard to see where the Legend of Zelda series gets its wacky sense of humour from. Well done, Mr. Iwanuma. In 1997, Matrix Software treated us to the superb spiritual successor to Landstalker, Alundra, for the original PlayStation, and it's definitely a game worth a mention and a playthrough if you get a chance. So let's talk for a while about the other end of the spectrum. We've seen a lot of good games, even a few great ones, but nothing truly awful yet. Well, that's about to change, as I present to you Neophyte, The Journey Begins by Alien Software in 1998 for Windows compatible PC. This is utterly terrible. Visually it hurts my eyes, it has an almost laughable plotline, painful sound, and on top of all this, it took me an age to actually get this to work correctly on my Windows 10 machine. A job, quite frankly, which was definitely not worth the effort. Please do yourself a favour and avoid this game at all costs. You have been warned. Yeah, I know that means that some of you out there will take this as a sign to go and find a copy and try it for yourselves, and by all means be my guest, knock yourself out. No, really, literally knock yourself out. It will be a lot less painful that way, trust me. Then in 1998, Zelda took a leap into new territory, the third dimension, with the release of The Legend of Zelda The Ocarina of Time for the N64, a truly fully polygonal adventure and one that is argued by many to be the best Zelda game ever. Sorry guys, that award goes to A Link to the Past in my eyes, ain't nothing gonna change that. So as Zelda went full on 3D, its visual style may have changed drastically, but the mechanics remained the same as always. Explore, find chests, collect keys, fight bosses, gather items, talk to NPCs, increase your health bar, and perhaps most importantly, revisiting old areas with newfound skills and abilities to unlock secrets and access further parts of the map. These are all things that define a Zelda game, along with the sword, the shield, the bombs, boomerang and the grappling claw shot, items which would return again and again right across the franchise. And the clones kept on coming too, themselves changing the graphical department but nevertheless sharing many of the Zelda-esque traits and play elements that we all know and love. Notable mentions of some of the best examples of this go to, in no particular order, Dark Cloud and Dark Cloud 2 Dark Chronicles for the PS2, Guramin, A Monstrous Adventure, available for PS3, 3DS and PC, Threads of Fate for the PlayStation, Sudeki on the Xbox and PC, Beyond Good and Evil on many platforms, the whole Darkside franchise, and Sphinx the Cursed Mummy. And in more recent years, retro has of course become cool once more, with many of the indie developers taking a look back at the good old-fashioned retro games of old and releasing some truly wonderful modern games. Among them a few gems that were definitely inspired by the Legend of Zelda series. Take a look at these.
What place does such selfless resolve come from? No one should be able to do the things that you do. The ancients doomed this land to its watery fate. But you make your own fate.
Working hard. Making sacrifices. Doing everything to finally achieve our dreams. Just to realize they are not dreams anymore.
And look to the heavens. We are both being judged, girl.
So there you have it guys, proof that if you make a good enough game to start with, then many of the clones will be pretty bloody good too, with the odd exception. Legend of Zelda, we salute you. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, why not smack the hell out of that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for more retro goodness. I've been Spexxy, you've been legendary, and I look forward to looking backwards with you again in the next episode. See you soon, bye for now.